military. This left almost nothing for domestic investment, for infrastructure, for economic development. And here's where the fatal mistake happened. Spain began borrowing against future silver deliveries. This is stage 2 of the collapse, from 1600 to 1620. Spanish kings understood that silver was flowing from the New World and would continue to flow for years, probably decades. So they began to treat future silver as if it already existed. They borrowed money from Italian, German, and Flemish bankers using future silver shipments as collateral. Here's how the loans worked. A banker would lend the Spanish crown, say, 1 million pesos today. In return, the crown would promise to repay 1.2 million pesos in 1 year, with the repayment guaranteed by silver shipments that would arrive from the New World. The bankers accepted this because they believed the silver was reliable. The mines in Potosi were producing hundreds of tons per year. Surely the silver would keep coming. This system worked for a while. It allowed Spain to spend money it didn't have yet. It allowed the crown to finance wars and construction projects immediately without waiting for the next silver fleet to arrive. But it created a dangerous dynamic. Spain was spending tomorrow's money today. And if anything disrupted the silver supply, if the mines produced less, if ships were lost at sea, if a war interrupted transport, the entire system would collapse. By 1600, the Spanish crown owed approximately 85 million ducats to foreign bankers. To put that in context, the crown's annual revenue was about 10 million ducats. Spain's debt was 8.5 times its annual income. For comparison, the United States today has a debt of 36.5 trillion and annual revenue of 4.9 trillion. That is 7.4 times annual revenue. Spain was more indebted relative to its income than modern America, but not by much. America is very close to Spain's level, and the debt was growing. Every year, Spain borrowed more. The interest payments alone consumed more than 40% of the crown as revenue by 1600. Spain was trapped in a debt spiral. It borrowed money to pay the interest on old debts. It borrowed money to fund wars. It borrowed money to cover budget deficits. The bankers kept lending because they believed in the silver. But the silver was not unlimited. This is exactly what America is doing right now. The United States borrows money by issuing treasury bonds. These bonds are promises to repay with interest using future tax revenue. The U.S. government is spending money today based on the assumption that the economy will keep growing and generate enough tax revenue to repay the debt. But U.S. interest payments are now $1.28 trillion per year, which is 26% of federal revenue. Spain's interest payments were 40% of revenue before the first default. America is heading in the same direction. Stage 3 of the collapse began around 1620 and lasted through the 1650s. This is when the silver began to run out. The Cerro Rico mine in Potosi, which had produced vast quantities for 75 years, was depleting. The richest, most accessible veins had been mined out. What remained required deeper shafts, more labor, more equipment, and more cost. Silver production peaked around 1600 and began a long decline. By 1650, production had fallen by more than 50%. At the same time, Spain was losing ships. The Atlantic crossing was dangerous. Storms, shipwrecks, and piracy took a toll. English, Dutch, and French privateers attacked Spanish treasure fleets. In 1628, a Dutch fleet commanded by Admiral Piet Hein captured an entire Spanish silver convoy off the coast of Cuba. The captured treasure was worth 11.5 million guilders. That was nearly an entire year's worth of silver shipments lost in one attack. When the silver stopped arriving, Spain could not repay its debts, and that's when the defaults began. The first Spanish sovereign default happened in 1557 under King Philip II. Spain owed approximately 7 million ducats to German and Italian bankers. The crown could not pay. Philip II declared a moratorium on all debt payments and forced the bankers to accept a restructuring. The bankers, having no alternative, agreed to convert short-term loans into long-term bonds at lower interest rates. They took massive losses. But this destroyed Spain's creditworthiness. Interest rates on new loans spiked. Spain, which had been able to borrow at 5 to 6% interest, was now paying 12 to 15%. The second default came in 1575, just 18 years after the first. By this point, Spain owed over 50 million ducats. The debt had grown despite the 1557 restructuring because Spain kept borrowing. Philip II again declared a moratorium. He froze all debt payments and forced another restructuring. This time, interest rates spiked even higher, to 18%. Lending to Spain had become extremely risky, so bankers demanded higher returns to compensate for the risk of default. The third default came in 1596. Philip II, near the end of his reign, declared bankruptcy for the third time in 39 years. By now, foreign bankers had learned their lesson.